Thanks everyone for coming this evening on a nice Monday evening. I am Anna Toledo. I am a project manager at the Department of Natural Resources. I work in our I work in the Forest Practices Division in the Adaptive Management Program, and the goal of that program is to provide science-based recommendations and technical information to help the Forest Practices Board in determining if and when to make adjustments to rules and guidance. And today I'm going to be talking about a project that we're working on related to fish habitat use. I'm also joined today by Janelle Black, who is the scientist on this project. Janelle, do you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Sure, I'm a forest hydrologist. I work as part of the Adaptive Management, Forest Practices Adaptive Management Timberfish Wildlife Coalition. I work for the Northwest Indian Fisheries Commission as one of the senior scientists. And I've been working on the project team for this study among several others, and we're excited to get it underway. And you want to introduce Hans too?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got Hans Burge, who's on the camera as well. We are working with Kramer Fish Sciences on this project, and Hans is leading a lot of the efforts, the field efforts for this project. Hans, do you want to do a quick introduction as well?
Oh, he may not have authority to unmute.
Okay. All right, that's all right. But it's great to have your face, Hans, and big part of the team here.
And Hans has been part of the adaptive management program off and on over the years, and is a very experienced fish biologist by background.
Yes, thanks. And just a note that we are recording this presentation, and also if you have questions, feel free to submit those in the chat box. John is helping to monitor the chat, and we can get to questions at the end of the presentation. So with that, I'll jump into things. So the project that we're working on, which I'll get into some of the details in just a moment, but we're really hoping to work with small forest landowners on this study. We've identified several study streams throughout the state, and we're hoping to work with landowners to access the selected study streams. As you can see, we've got points all over the state. It's a large project, both in scope and scale. And for the presentation today, I'll be walking through a brief overview of the project and talk a little bit about the study sites we're interested in and how we're hoping to collaborate with landowners. Just a brief overview of the background of this project and why it matters. This project is related to fish habitat use. As you are likely aware, there are different riparian buffer requirements on fish versus non-fish streams. And the Forest Practices Board is currently in the process of establishing a permanent water typing rule. And the results from these studies will help provide information to validate those thresholds to be used in the revised water typing methodology. So the board is already in this process, and it's important to note that the study that we're working on is for validating those thresholds. For this project, we're actually conducting two studies, though the data will be gathered from one set of field data. The two studies are referred to as the potential habitat breaks and default physical criteria validation studies. You may hear them referred to by their acronyms, PHB for potential habitat breaks and DPC for default physical criteria. For the study, we will look at uppermost fish location through electrofishing surveys, and we'll also gather data on physical stream characteristics. This study will occur over multiple years and multiple seasons. We're getting started this year, and it will run through 2027. And while the studies will be gathering data from one kind of collective field effort, they will use separate analyses to achieve the specific study objectives for each one, for the potential habitat breaks and the default physical criteria. So what are we talking about when we're talking about PHBs or potential habitat breaks? So these are defined as permanent, distinct, and measurable characteristics that limit the upstream extent of fish distribution. So for this, we're looking at gradient changes, changes to channel width, as well as obstacles to migration. Got some pictures of there of some examples of these. Default physical criteria, or DPC, these are what landowners can use to assess water type in the absence of a protocol survey. So these characteristics include channel gradient, bankful width, and basin area. And there are some differences in eastern versus western Washington. Getting a little bit into this specific study, we are looking to assess the combinations of characteristics associated with upstream extent of fish and potentially suitable fish habitat. Again, as this is a validation study, we will be assessing the accuracy of current default physical characteristics and potential habitat breaks. And we're also going to look at how these characteristics may change over geography and time. For the study, as I mentioned at the start, we will be conducting electrofishing surveys to determine the upstream extent of fish, as well as conducting habitat surveys. There will be repeat sampling, again, over multiple years as well as multiple seasons, and this helps capture the variability over time. Importantly, because we're surveying along a length of stream, it is possible that a single survey may extend over more than one ownership. And I've got some maps coming up in a little bit that may help illustrate that. And this is just, again, putting up the same map that I showed at the start of the presentation. This shows the initial list of 350 sites that we're interested in. Again, you can see it's a large study, and the sites have been identified through a carefully designed randomization process. And we're in the process now of reaching out to landowners at these identified sites. So part of the goal of the presentation today is just to help get the word out about this study. So if you do happen to be on one of these sites, it may sound familiar when we come contacting you to see if you'd be able to participate. This is just an overview of our schedule. The field work for these studies is set to occur over 3 years, with field work starting in spring of this year. Again, you can see this, we've got 350 sites across the state with a split in eastern versus western Washington. All sites will be sampled in the spring to summer timeframe, and then we will have a subset of sites that will be resampled in the fall and winter. As I've noted, this is a study we're looking at across the state, and we've identified potential study streams when we're now in the process of reaching out to landowners on those identified streams to seek participation in the study. For landowners on those streams who are willing to participate, we would ask for access to the stream for the duration of the study, so that 2025 to 2027 time range. As mentioned, the project involves our field crews doing electrofishing surveys as well as habitat surveys. We would not need to leave any monitoring equipment on site, though may need to put up some flagging or markers. And importantly, there's no need to change harvest plans for this work. And in terms of working with us, we can provide you maps of the sites that we're interested in. I'll show you some examples in a moment. And then we would just ask to set up a type of access agreement and then just work together on logistical information in terms of the right contact person and any instructions for access, gate keys, etc. Okay, this is one example map. This is that, we would send you. This is sort of a vicinity map. If there were multiple sites, one landowner had multiple sites that we were interested in for the study, show up here with a couple different sites. And this just gives a bit of an overview of where we're talking about. And then you also get a zoomed in version for each site. So a specific site, again, you can see what we're interested in here is really this length of stream. So this stream that's here in orange, which in the legend is called out as the expected survey reach. As you can see, this is crossing multiple ownerships. There's an example of that, and we would want to be accessing that, have the ability to access that stretch of stream. All right. I'm actually getting towards the end of the presentation, then would welcome questions or additional information from Janelle if she would like to share. But yeah, if one or more of your streams falls, one or more of our study streams falls on your forest lands, then you can expect me or someone within our program to be reaching out soon with a request, either by mail or email. We would send you a map of the identified sites. I also put up some links to the project websites. I can put those in the chat as well in just a moment. And yeah, if you're willing to participate, we would love to establish an access agreement and get set up with those logistics so that the field crews could access your site. My contact information is also here. I'll also put that in the chat in a moment. And really the goal of this work is to ensure that the water typing rules that are put in place that forest landowners across the state use are accurate and scientific. So we really appreciate your interest in this work and your help in getting it done. My next to last slide is just an overview of some of the team members. As this is a large project, we have several people who are involved in getting it on the ground. Can't put all of their names here, but wanted to get some of them up here. The project staff in that first line are likely to be the people like myself and Janelle, who would be reaching out to you for that initial contact if there is an identified steady stream on your forest land. And then we are working with Kramer Fish Sciences, so Hans, who's on the call, as well as other members from Kramer Fish and their crews, would be the ones actually out on the ground, coordinating the surveys and the field work, and actually having the boots on the ground. And then we also have listed as well the study design authors who also remain on the project team and have been assisting with getting this project on the ground. With that, I'll put up my thank you slide. I'll drop some of the links in the chat. This QR code will take you to the project website if you wanted to use that, if you're feeling high tech with your cell phone, but I'll also put some links in there as well. And maybe before we head to questions, maybe I'll just ask Janelle if you have, as the scientist on the team here, if you have anything you want to add.
No, other than we really appreciate you guys, people attending tonight, and WFFA for letting us helping us get the word out, letting us put on this presentation and advertising it. And to reiterate about the stream and what we're trying to access, as Anna showed you, the streams do go across multiple landowners. So for each site, we'll be trying to get access from all of those landowners so that we can conduct our studies. The studies do entail surveying downstream to wherever the last fish, or the uppermost fish below is, and then we'll be surveying upstream from there. So it's possible some of our sites may even extend a little bit downstream of what we have in our maps. We've tried to include and incorporate some of that stream length to ensure we get permission from everybody. But the other thing we want is just, like I said, to get the word out, not only to you, but hopefully to people that you talk to and other landowners, so that, because it might not be you, but it might be one of your neighbors that ends up receiving a letter or word from us. So the more people who know about it and hopefully would be supportive of it, hopefully the better response we'll get from landowners. That's our hope, our objective. So are there questions? I see one from Ken. Anybody else's?
Yeah, we've got one question from Ken. If I can read this. I didn't hear whether or not the study requires some harvest activity. I assume not.
That's correct, Ken. Yes, no harvest activity. We'll just be in the streams primarily, and surveying up within the streams. Also, no need to change your harvest plans. We will work around. If you have a harvest scheduled, we can likely work with you and work around any schedule there. But yeah, we don't need any particular riparian or harvest to go along with this at all. It's just going out and collecting data.
Okay, second question from Anne. She's wondering, will the results of this study affect the current buffer rules?
We don't know. It shouldn't affect the buffer rules at all. The only thing it would do is support the actual watertight breaks. So where it changes from a fish to non-fish bearing stream, conceivably it could affect that in the long term, but primarily it's validating things the Forest Practices Board is putting into place now. And also, but the way we're collecting and analyzing the data could potentially suggest that there is some other combination that wasn't considered that would work better. I don't know where that would go, but that is a conceivable outcome. We're trying to get the closest alignment between where the fish actually stop using the habitat and what those characteristics are.
Okay, we do have a couple of hands raised. I think I'll start with Ken because we've already heard a question from him. So I'm going to unmute you. Ken, you should be able to unmute yourself now. There you go. Okay, Ken.
Two things. I first want to just indicate support for all of these folks that I know do good work. Most all of the science they do ends up being on industry land, so I'm eager to and appreciative that they're trying to reach out to small forest landowners. And if you get approached, because as I understand it, they've got sample plots and they're going to be reaching out to individuals, or maybe I don't have that right. Maybe you're
No,
just
that's right.
Oh, okay. So there's no point in volunteering unless you hear from somebody that they'd like to look at your property. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I'd like to explain that a little bit more. That has to do with the very carefully and the scientific validity of the study to maintain the randomness. We had the sample draw by our statisticians using a particular process that ensures geographic distribution across the land base of interest. So we need to maintain that. So we can't just jump to volunteered sites. Unfortunately, that would make life easy, but would jeopardize potentially bias the study results. So we don't want anybody to question that, even to question it. Yeah.
Okay, and then the other thing, observation, and then I think confirming what I'm hearing. Of course, most small forest landowners don't have the real opportunity to do the protocol survey, or choose not to, or don't have the resources. Even though we have a small landowner office that has technical assistance, although he just checked out, and I think they've got somebody else hired to help that. But what we've found over the last couple of years is, even though we have somebody that could do the protocol survey, because we don't own the full stream reach, they can't do the protocol survey, so they're forced to rely on the default physicals, which brings me to my question. As I understand this study, this will help better define the criteria for the default physicals, because in part, the studies that I've seen, heard about, indicate that by using the default physicals on average compared to the full protocol survey, our fish classification goes 1,000 feet or more above the actual protocol survey end of fish. So it's in our best interest to cooperate with this study in hopes that ultimately the default physicals will get corrected to where they're not near as discriminatory as what I understand they are today. Now, am I on the right track? Is this study going to help potentially revise the default physicals at some point?
Yes, that is the DPC portion of the study, default physical criteria portion of the study. Yeah, that's the objective, is to really to bring those or ensure that they are as closely aligned as we can. The actual end of, where the habitat fish use versus the habitat characteristics. Yep.
And have you reached out to individual landowners already? And this is what we got out of that list that showed up, or what's the...
Oh, no, we are just beginning that. We've reached out to, we've got our list submitted to the large landowners. And they're working through that, they have all these extensive legal processes and all these multiple steps they have to go through. So we've got that far, and we're just about to embark on the small, the individual landowners now. So, so people should expect to hear from us over the next probably couple of weeks, at least for initially. They may get something in the mail initially, and then we'll be as well as we can, talking through intermediaries, people may know somebody who knows this person or whatever, and get, through email or possibly even phone calls. Yeah.
I don't know if you can or not, but it might be good to send that copy of that list to at least Elaine. And then
absolutely.
if you have issues with somebody, not being as cooperative as you think they might be, at least let Elaine know, and maybe we can help influence that decision. If we know the people.
Well, that would be nice. But even just finding out, how to contact some of these, some of the people on our list would be awesome. That'd be great. So.
Okay, Holly has her hand up, and Holly, if you want to unmute yourself.
Hi, everyone. This is Holly with the DNR Small Forest Landowner Office as the Education Outreach person. Thank you, WFFA, for hosting, and Anna and Janelle for helping present this topic. I was also following up. I think Ken answered the question. I was going to offer to do an article or something about this topic for our small forest landowner newsletter going out statewide but it looks like you've already chosen the sites. You just need to contact the specific people, not like your shade article that you had written for looking for volunteer participants.
Right. Yeah. It's
Okay,
a little different. The study's a little bit different that way.
Okay, thank you. The other thing, I'm just curious about the techniques and tools. Is there any use of DNA sampling in fish presence, or is it mostly the shocking protocol?
I don't know if Hans wants to step in, but at this point, no, we're not planning to use eDNA in this study for a variety of reasons. Contamination, given the rest of our survey protocol being a big one.
Okay, thank you.
I would also add that if you look at Board Manual 13, there are many different techniques you can use to determine presence, but the only acceptable one to determine absence is protocol survey electrofishing. And so I think it's important for this study that it uses the highest criteria method to make that determination to most accurately reflect the uppermost fish as well as the potential habitat breaks, and then ultimately the default physical criteria based on fish use. And so the bar is set really high for this study. It's not the simplest way to do it necessarily, but like Janelle said, in order to make sure that it's a robust, durable solution that we identify, and the data have the full ability to be analyzed and utilized, I guess, in the forest practices realm. We have that stringent criteria, so that's the reason that we're using it. eDNA could have a place, definitely has a place for presence, but really we have to look at both sides of the issue here, presence and absence.
Thank you for that. And just following up to Ken, we are just hiring the Small Forest Landowner Office, the Regulation Assistance Fish and Wildlife Biologist. His name is Landon, and he starts next week. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Holly.
Okay. I thought I saw a hand up. Steve has his hand up. Steve, let me. Okay, you should be able to unmute now if you have a question.
Yeah, I am. Actually, I have more statements than question. Yeah, I want to thank Anna, Hans, and Janelle here for reaching out like this. This is a very helpful way of doing this. For those who do or do not know, I guess I represent small forest landowners on the Forest Practice Board, and I've worked for a long time with Ken Miller on TFW policy. This is Hans is smiling, but this is a topic near and dear to my heart. And this is really important for smalls that we have this study conducted. The three people that have done presentation here this evening are very good scientists. These are fine people. They're people that you can deal with and know that they're actually working towards getting the best science available to us for helping with determining fish habitat in the state of Washington. So I really strongly encourage you, if any of them reach out to you that your site is something that they want to look at. This is very important to small forest landowners as a large group, but also potentially for you individually. You might get some water typing done on your property that you would have to spend money on otherwise. And this is, the practical standpoint, that's really important because they can be expensive, but particularly we've committed as an organization, WFFA, to the Forest and Fish Agreement. We want to identify the extent of fish habitat. We've committed to that as an organization. I'm thinking most of you want to know where fish are on your property, just as an interest, but also for the resource that you are growing and trying to harvest over time. So knowing where things are is really important to you. This is going to help you individually, but also in the larger scheme of things. They didn't, Anna and Janelle didn't mention it, but longer term, and Hans is aware of this, longer term, the board is also looking at a third commitment that was made to small forest landowners in particular, that we would have a map-based system to identify the extent of fish habitat on all forest lands in the state of Washington. And it fell down to the third priority as far as timing, because we need really high quality LiDAR in order to do that kind of work. And the results of these two studies are actually going to feed data to that third study and be the basis, part of the basis for having a LiDAR-based system, which is again, a commitment at the board that I've been pushing very, very hard, and that the other caucuses in the state have agreed to. But we don't want to lose sight of it. But this is very helpful for populating some of the information, not all of it, but some of the information we're going to need to have that LiDAR-based system, so mapping system. So again, if people have specific questions for their own property, I'll even offer to, get a hold of me if you have a question. But again, these are honorable people that you're talking to here. And but if you have questions that you feel like you want to ask further questions, Ken, I'll volunteer Ken and myself to have that kind of nice discussion with you to justify why or why not you don't want to do this. But I can talk you through some of the answer some of your questions for why you might not want to, and maybe convince you that it's worthwhile. So I guess I'll leave it at that unless anybody has specific questions. But this is an important study for all landowners, but particularly for schmalls, and we should cooperate as much as we possibly can. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Steve. We have a couple of questions in the chat. Looks like maybe 3. So the first one is from an unidentified person, and I'll just read it. He said, "Exciting opportunity. Thank you. Wondering what your outreach plan will be and whether you will be working with DNR's Small Forest Landowner Program to help get the word out, and what your target sample size will be."
I can speak a little bit to that. Thanks for the question, and thanks for being here. We currently, our plan is to, since we have those streams identified already, is to make specific targeted outreach by letter, as well as by other, if we have access to other communications such as an email or a phone to follow up, we'll do that as well. But I absolutely love the suggestion to work with the Small Forest Landowner Office in making those connections as well. I think that'll be great. Holly, I'll be following up with you after this. And was there another part of the question? Oh, the study size. So yeah, we've got 350 sites is what we're working for. We're we realize that we may not get all the ones that were up on the screen. So there's sort of a hierarchy of ones that if some get off the list, then we go down to the next ones on the list. But 350 is the sample size.
So at this point, we're evaluating about 450 sites. We don't expect that we'll use all of them, and we do have more in reserve if we end up needing more. But 350 is what the study will actually be on.
About how many of those are small forest landowners are you guessing?
Well, it's hard because it's not just a particular point. There's streams, so you might have one site often will be like partly on a large forest landowner, maybe partly on Forest Service, and then it'll cross 2 or 3 small landowners. So It's about, I'd say about half and half. Maybe a little less than half are made up of small forest landowners. But there are a large number of them. My landowner list is about 800 people long at this point. That includes the large landowners. But
Okay.
And I'll butt in one more time and echo what Steve said about the other benefit that I didn't think about. If you participate in this, you're going to get your stream typing done for you. That's
right.
a big deal on two counts. It ain't going to cost you anything. And if you do it, you're going to get it done right, as opposed to going through probably with these mixed ownerships, the default physical process, which is liable to cost you the big buffers further upstream. So this is a real win-win-win if you get the opportunity.
Thank you, Ken. And Steve, I really want to thank you for your support too, and bringing up the point about the future LiDAR-based water typing map. Thank you.
Okay, I've got another question in the chat from Patty.
Mm-hmm.
It says WFFA used Kramer fish science to support the West Side Buffer template, and their conclusions were rejected by agencies, including DNR. So how can we be confident of the data and conclusions now that DNR is using Kramer for this study?
Do you want me to address that, Hans, or would you like to?
I'd be happy to address those. The work that Kramer Fish Sciences did in support of the template that was proposed, well, actually Kramer didn't work on the template that was proposed. They worked on the east side template that was going to accompany the template, and that was a gentleman named Mark Tepley, who's a fine scientist. He's a forester, and Kevin Cedar, who's also a forester. Neither of whom work at Kramer Fish Sciences, but they worked in our forestry lab, which is totally separate than the work that we do. I'm a fisheries scientist. The work that Kramer does primarily is fisheries focused, with a lot of forestry connections. But those folks, the work that they did, the problem with the acceptance of that had nothing to do with the science. That was actually about the policy related to it and what was being proposed as a policy, but the science wasn't in question. I'll kind of leave it at that. The assessment that was done, that wasn't in question either. So on the technical side of things, those two did an outstanding job on that, and it was recognized by DNR at the time that the science was fine. The analysis was robust, stood up to some scrutiny. It really came down to TFW policy and the interpretation of a template and what was being proposed as being usual, rather than a special case. So I would suggest talking to both Steve and Ken, who are heavily involved in the template at the time at TFW policy. If you have any more questions on that.
If you will, I'll just make one quick comment. Everything Hans said is quite correct. It was good science. It also, beside the policy component of it about what the template was trying to do based on the information from the science review, it was outside. It was considered outside science. It wasn't in the adaptive management program as such. And so there was a bit of a cloud associated with that, which we still haven't resolved within the AFP. So anyway, it's what Hans said is true. I have no question at all about the integrity of this particular study. I've been involved with both at TFW Policy and know the people that are at SEMER who have put this together. And no, you can count on, this is not an advertisement, but you can count on Kramer Fish Sciences to do a good job on this, as well as the integrity of the adaptive management program staff. So say that.
And to follow up on what both of us have said, well, especially Steve, with the point he brought up, this study was designed within the normal adaptive management process, which is partly why it took so long to design, but by consensus. And the people on the project team include tribal members, landowners, agency members, everybody together. So it was, and the environmental caucus. So it was built by consensus, the whole design, and it includes the analysis procedures, the analyses to be done and whatnot. So I think there should be a whole lot of buy-in with the findings of the study, because that was all developed in consensus together. Does that help?
I can't resist weighing in, echo everything that Steve said, particularly his comments about Kramer Fish. But on the other hand, Patty is also correct in that the SEMER review process failed, and therefore our template science had a cloud created on it. And it all had to do, again, as Steve pointed out, about outside science. And this particular science is within the SEMER processes, so it's not going to have any issues like that. And we are still working our way through that example that Patty referenced in the way of a outside science. In fact, we've actually just started a dispute resolution process on how we should be handling outside science where policy or the board is asking the SEMER to review some outside science. So it's going to get resolved, and it'll be fine, but it really is not related to what we're doing here today. This, again, is a good process with lots of wins for the landowner.
Thanks, Ken.
Okay, I have one last question in the chat box, and it comes from Dean. His question is, are you looking for other streams?
We're not, in that we have to maintain the sample structure as it was provided by the statisticians in order to maintain our unbiased sample and the spatial distribution that we're seeking. So unfortunately, we can't just take volunteer streams. It would make our lives a whole lot easier if we could, but but we have to maintain the sample structure as it was given to us. I mean, as it was provided based on the criteria in our study design.
Okay, that's all the questions we have, I think.
Thank you very much. I want to express my gratitude for WFFA for hosting us, John for getting things all set up on the technical end of things, and everyone who's here and participate in this discussion, and appreciate the vote of confidence from several of you. It means a lot to have that level of trust. I said that I would put the links in the chat. It seems like my chat actually can only go to the organizers. So I did put the links in the chat, but I'm pretty sure it just probably just went to John. But if, perhaps there are some other ways to get those links out. And certainly you can reach out to John or Anne or Elaine to get in contact with me. They have my contact information if you had any follow-up questions. But really appreciate your time and engagement.
Oh, thank you, John.
You're very welcome. I just copied and pasted those links that Anna had sent to me to everybody that's on the call. I think we'll also be following up with an email. We are recording this, so once we download the recording, we'll get that posted on the WFFA website and send that out. Well, we didn't do a registration for this, so I would say anybody that's on the call that's interested in getting a link to the recording, please send a request to info@wildfarmforestry.com. That's Kelly Zandel, our administrative assistant, and she'll build a list of folks that we can send that out to.
That would be great. It'd be really nice if, I wonder if maybe the project link or that QR code could, some information maybe go out in the next newsletter or something. I don't know. That might be helpful for people to see in a broader audience. Again, we want to make sure that people know that when they hear something or hear about this, that it's a legitimate project, and
Sure.
we're not just scammers trying to.
Yeah. We'll do our best to continue to advertise it. I think maybe we can post an article on the website, and we do have a couple of newsletters that we send out, and we'll make sure that the article that was in the landowner news gets repeated again with all this additional information from tonight. So
Thank you very much.
you bet.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Steve and Ken, it was nice hearing from you two again, and appreciate everybody and the great questions, and look forward to working with you.